In this video, we will be looking at using strip diagrams for subtraction situations. Here's our first example. Benji has a collection of 256 marbles. Of those marbles, 178 of them are clear glass while the rest are opaque. How many opaque marbles does Benji own? Side note, opaque means that you can't see through it. The first thing I'm going to do is look at my important information. The main thing that this problem is about is Benji and his marbles. And I know that his collection has 256 marbles in total. Also, of those marbles, 178 of them are clear glass, while the rest are opaque. Do we know how much the rest is? No. That's what we're going to be looking for. So when I set up my strip diagram, I'm going to do this one. There's two different options. So for this one, I'm going to do option 1, which is a single strip that is broken into parts. So we're looking at marbles, and I write that. Ooh, that looks like an N. That's an R. And I have one long strip. And I know that this whole strip, his whole group of marbles, would be 256. So I label that whole strip with a bracket. Then I know that part of them are 178. And I know 178 is a pretty good amount compared to 256. So I'm going to take it as most of the bar. Those are the clear marbles. So I'm going to label that above, and I'm going to put 178 in that box. The opaque marbles are the ones that I don't know, and I'm going to make that my X, so that I know that my whole is 256. One part is 178, and the other part I'm not sure I'm looking for. So if I know the whole in one of the parts, then I know it is a subtraction situation. So I take 256, line up 178 with place value so that the 6 and the 8 are in the same column, the 5 and the 7 are in the same column, and the 2 and the 1 are in the same column. Notice that I've put the larger number on top, the smaller number on the bottom, and I'm ready to subtract. So first I have to do 6 minus 8. If I have 6 cookies, can I eat 8 cookies? No. In order for me to do this subtraction problem, I must go to the next place and borrow. If I take one of the tens away, that 5 is going to be left with 4 tens. And this 6 now has 10 added to it, so it will be 16. 16 minus 8 is 8, because 8 plus 8 equals 16. 4 minus 7, can I do that? No, I'm going to have to make another trade. So now I go to the hundreds place. I borrow from one of these hundreds. That leaves me 100 left. And I now have 10 tens. And I'm going to take one of those over here. 14 minus 7 is 7, because 7 plus 7 is 14. And then I can finish my problem. 1 minus 1 is 0. So I know that 78 is the number of opaque marbles that Benji has. For our next problem, we're going to look at a different way to make a strip diagram for subtraction. Here's our situation. Highland Elementary was looking at their school lunch data. On Tuesday, 352 of the school's 549 students bought a school lunch, and the rest brought their lunch from home. How many students brought a lunch from home? Okay, first things first, what do I know? I know that this question is about Highland Elementary, And I know they're looking at their school lunch data. And we're looking at Tuesday. And we know that 352 bought a school lunch. We also know from this sentence, it says 352 of the school's 549 students. So I know the school has 549 students. And the rest brought their lunch from home. Do I know how much the rest is? No, that's what I'm looking for. So this time I'm going to use option 2, where I'm going to use 2 different bars for this strip diagram. Since I know the total, 549, I know that's going to go on my bracket. And I know I'm going to have a bar for students who bought school lunch and who brought a home lunch. So I know that 352 is the number that bought a school lunch. That's a pretty large amount. That tells me that more students bought school lunch than brought their lunch from home. So my bar for school lunch needs to be larger than my bar for home lunch. So I'm going to draw my bar for school lunch, and I'm going to label it. And the number that goes on this bar is 352. Then I'm going to draw my bar for home lunch, which I know is going to be much smaller. I don't know the exact size yet because that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to label it with an H for home lunch. So now I know the whole, 549. I know one of the parts, 352, and I'm looking for the other part. If I know the whole and one of the parts, I must subtract. 549 minus 352. I made sure that the 9 and the 2 were lined up because they're in the ones place for each number. I made sure the 4 and the 5 were lined up because they are in the tens place for each number. And I lined up the 3 and the 5 because they're in the hundreds place. Also notice, I put the larger number on the top. 549 is greater than 352. That is super important when you are doing subtraction. Okay, so now I start in the ones column. 9 minus 2 is 7, because 7 plus 2 equals 9. 4 minus 5. If I have 4 cookies, can I eat 5 cookies? No, I cannot. I'm going to have to make a trade. So I go to the next place over, and from this 500, I'm going to take one of those tens. So then I'm going to, or one of the hundreds, sorry. Now I'm going to have 4 left, and I'm going to put that one that I borrowed over here. So now I have 14 tens instead of just 4 tens. 14 minus 5 is 9, because 9 plus 5 is 14. 4 minus 3 is 1, because 1 plus 3 is 4. So I now know that 197 students brought a home lunch. So in this case, you have the 2 bars representing the 2 categories. And over on the end, you have your bracket showing your total. Okay, this is a little bit different. This is what we call a comparison situation. When you are comparing things, you are telling which one is more or which one is less. So in this case, Gabby is 64 inches tall. Her younger brother is 48 inches tall. How much taller is Gabby than her brother? Okay, so we're comparing Gabby and her height to her brother and his height. Those are shorts, not a skirt. Okay, so we're looking for the difference between their two heights. So how much difference there is between their two heights? So what I know is Gabby is 64 inches tall. Her younger brother is 48 inches tall. How much taller? That is what tells us it is a comparison. So anytime I see how much taller, how much shorter, how much wider, how much farther, how much more, how much less, how many more, how many fewer, all of those tell me it is a comparison situation. With a comparison, I need two bars. I'm going to have, in this case, Gabby's bar, and her bar is going to show her 64 inches. And then I'm also going to have her brother's bar. And her brother's bar is going to be 48 inches. So his will be shorter than hers. Now, the special thing about a comparison situation is that I am looking for the difference between the lengths of these bars. So if I'm going down here, if I drew a straight line, what I'm looking for is how much space comes between the end of brother's bar and the end of Gabby's bar. So that is my question mark. In order to find that, I will subtract. That's why it's a subtraction situation. So basically, I'm looking at lining up the bars and chopping off this little piece and seeing how much difference there is there. So to work this problem, I take 64, it's the larger number, and subtract 48 from it. I start in my ones column. If I have 4 cookies, can I eat 8 cookies? No, no, no. I've got to make a trade. So I go over to the tens column and borrow one of those tens. Now there are only 5 tens and 14 ones, which is the exact same thing as 64. We just made it look different. 5 tens plus 14 ones, this would be 50, plus 14 is still 64. 14 minus 8 is 6, because 6 plus 8 equals 14. 5 minus 4 is 1, because 1 plus 4 equals 5. So now we know that Gabby is 16 inches taller than her brother. This has been how to do subtraction with strip diagrams.